Hey, welcome back to my channel where I make videos about my own experience as a diagnosed autistic human being from France. It's raining outside right now, so if you hear some background noise, that's probably why. I personally love the rain. I find rain sounds to be very comforting and relaxing. We had a big storm last night, which was probably like the biggest storm we've had yet in this house. I wasn't particularly excited about coming back to France 8 months ago, but one of the things I missed while living abroad, especially living in England for so long, was I missed the big spring and summer storms that I used to get when I lived in France in my childhood. I was very excited. Last night was a very magical moment with the storm outside. When there's bad weather outside and you're safe inside the house with all your loved ones. Like, it was me, my partner, and our cats hanging out in the living room, listening to the thunder, watching the lightning in the sky, and we even had hail at some point. It was just really cool. I had a bit of a struggle trying to get the lighting in this room. For some reason, every single light bulb in this house decided to stop working at the same time. They were probably all changed at the same time, and so they all died together. I don't know, but I swear these past week it's been one lamp after another that has died, and this one I moved closer to where I'm sitting, and just moving it around was enough to kill the light bulbs. So I'm constantly running around the house trying to find a light bulb that works. I got a light bulb from another lamp in the living room to put it in there, and then I'm gonna have to put it back, and just switching the light bulbs around to get some lighting. It's ridiculous. As an autistic person with chronic fatigue and executive dysfunction, it can be hard to do things like changing light bulbs because there's a lot involved into doing that, like going online or going to a physical shop. But for me, what's most realistic is going online and looking for the right light bulb for this specific lamp and making sure it's a warm light, not a cold light, and then ordering it and everything. Like, so we haven't got around to ordering any light bulbs. We've just been switching them around. It's like we're playing a game almost. I'm filming this video as a way to procrastinate cleaning the downstairs toilet because it's one of my chores, and I was very happy that I was able to create somewhat of a schedule around it. Every couple weeks I clean the downstairs toilet, and I was really happy to have finally found a schedule that works, where it's not too much that I can't handle it, but also it happens often enough that the toilet is in a relatively clean state. And it might sound like not enough to some people, and ideally I'd probably prefer cleaning it every week, but that's the reality of being autistic and finding ways to get things done while struggling. And that's the way I found of doing it. And so for the last few months, I've been really good at cleaning the downstairs toilet every other week on Sunday. And today I've been too tired. That's one of the reasons why I want to make this video. Is I wanted to film an update on how I am doing and where I'm at in my burnout recovery journey, because I've done some research lately that has shed some light on where I'm at in my recovery journey, and I think it's the kind of information that could help a lot of other people, which is why I wanted to talk about it in this video. I'm in this weird phase where my energy levels still fluctuate a lot. I definitely have more energy to do things like go for a walk almost every day, or we've been going into town like once a week, and it's not something that we're forcing or anything. It's just something that happened naturally. We just started having the energy and the will to go into town every once a week and get lunch, or we even almost went to see a movie in the cinema a week ago and then canceled at the last minute. But what matters is that the will was there and the energy was there. So it's very positive. I definitely have more energy to do stuff. And that's where it gets tricky, because I want to do more stuff. I've been stuck in this burnout for over a year. I am bored, frankly, with my life, and I want more excitement in my life. I want to feel alive. I want to have fun. And at the same time, I very much feel like my reserves are still very limited, and my energy reserves, and my nervous system is still very fragile. That's kind of what leads me to the subject of this video, and the reason why I wanted to make this video is I know more about the different phases of burnout now. I was doing research and I was talking to ChatGPT about how I'm feeling and being like, I'm so frustrated because I'm stuck in this sort of limbo where I want to do more stuff and I'm bored and I want to like stimulate my mind, like cognitively, intellectually, but also when I do too much of that, I get tired really easily, or I get overstimulated very easily. And every single night for the past few weeks, I've been feeling anxious, I've been feeling off in my body, shortness of breath, and then struggling to fall asleep, and always waking up in the middle of the night and struggling to go back to sleep, and then having to sleep until 10-11 a.m. because I'm so tired. Those are just classic signs of doing more than your nervous system is capable of handling. And for me, that looks like watching too much YouTube, watching too much Netflix, and things like that. Because that's apart from going out for a walk or going into town, that's the only way that I have found of getting the excitement and the cognitive intellectual stimulation that I need right now. But because it's often fast-paced content or triggering content, very emotional stuff, or just stuff to do with social injustice or ableism or whatever, sensational stuff, if you will, that overwhelms my nervous system, and every single night I end up dysregulated and I don't sleep well as a consequence. So I was like trying to find a way. I was like, how do I stimulate my mind without overstimulating my nervous system? How do I find that balance? And it's definitely not my first time being in this situation. I've made videos about that in the past, but it's particularly difficult right now because I have more energy, but I also get tired very easily. And so I was doing research, I was talking to ChatGPT about it, and I found a couple of really good articles written by psychologists, which I will link down below, which talk about autistic burnout specifically and how it comes in two main phases. And that really helped me understand where I am in my recovery journey, and that like what I'm experiencing is like textbook chronic phase. So basically you have two phases. You have the acute phase, which typically lasts a few days to a few weeks, so relatively short. It rarely lasts more than a few weeks, which is where you're the most exhausted. Think of it as like the peak of burnout, where for me, for example, it was back in November. And for a few weeks, like 2 to 3 weeks, I barely left my bed. I didn't wash my hair for a month. I couldn't take showers because standing in the shower was too much. So I would take baths, so I didn't have to stand up. My sensory sensitivities were so heightened. I had to live in my sunglasses and my loops or my headphones, not tolerating much, feeling exhausted all the time. The most I was able to do was watch movies and videos all day, and my partner handled 90% of the chores, so we had to find ways to make meal prepping much easier, because my partner is also autistic and ADHD, so has his own issues with executive dysfunction and fatigue and stuff. So it was a big struggle, but it only lasted 2 to 3 weeks. The months prior to that, since pretty much March or April last year, I had been struggling with low energy and heightened sensitivities. But the culminating point really was November. So I feel like most of last year was just the warning signs of burnout, if you will, of pre-burnout, if you want to call it that. All of the things that happened during that period brought me to the acute phase in November. So the international move and dealing with our toxic landlady back in England and dealing with my in-laws and too many demands, especially too many social demands, was like the tipping point. It wasn't the thing that triggered my burnout. Autistic burnout is the consequence of the accumulation of chronic stress over several years, usually. And for me, it very much feels like it all accumulated across my young adult life. When I became an adult, the demands of life started exceeding my capacity. That's like textbook triggers for autistic burnout is chronic stress and not having your needs met and not having the appropriate accommodations or support in place, which means that you're constantly doing more than you can realistically handle. And that's what eventually leads to burnout. Again, like I've made many videos talking about that. But for me, it was having to deal with my harmful family, healing from my trauma and figuring all that out and setting boundaries and stuff like that, and struggling to set boundaries, and just dealing with that part of my life itself was like a big contributor for my burnout. Then, you know, doing a bachelor's degree, doing a master's degree, and having all the pressure from that, and then the pressure I put on myself to try and work and make a living, and failing and having to quit, and just all of that. And then losing my great aunt in early 2023, who was the most important and the dearest person in my life. And just all these things accumulate, and then being in a house where we had to deal with a very toxic landlady who was triggering a constant trauma response in me, and just all these things basically were what eventually led me to being burnout. And yeah, I feel like the move was the tipping point, and I knew that it was probably not going to help my burnout. But in hindsight, I'm in a much better place now in this house. I'm in much better conditions to recover from burnout than I was back there. So even though that was what tipped me over into the acute phase of burnout, I don't regret the move, because now I'm in a much better place to recover, if that makes sense. So it was worth it in the end. And so the acute phase was in November, and since then I've been in the chronic phase of burnout. And that's basically where most people get stuck. And that's also what the articles talk about, is that people will regain some energy after the acute phase is over, and they think, oh great, I'm recovered now, I'm fine again. And they start, the demands start piling up again, and they start doing more than they can, biting off more than they can chew, I think the expression is. And I see a lot of autistic content creators on YouTube, myself included, getting stuck in that cycle of thinking your burnout is over and you can start doing more, or sometimes it's not even a choice, you just have to do more. It's the necessities of life, right? And that means that you start doing more than your nervous system can handle, and you fall right back down, and you have these mini burnouts, as they call it in the article, or setbacks or relapses, where like your energy reserves are so small and that you empty them so quickly, and then you're back to having to rest. And like that's why people think they're out of burnout, and they're like, I don't understand, because like I don't have a lot of capacity. I often find myself in this cycle where I have those dips in energy, and that's because you haven't recovered fully from burnout. You're still doing more than you should. And during this chronic phase of burnout, The article was saying that you should aim to always have, and it's gonna sound crazy, right? You should always aim to have 40% of your energy left at the end of the day. So only spend 60% of your energy every day. Now, when I read that, I was like, how many people can realistically do that? Because even me who doesn't work, I struggle with that. So I can't imagine someone who works, you know? But realistically, if you want to fully recover from burnout and exit that chronic phase, which basically lasts a few months to a few years, and I think if you've been in that phase for years, it probably means that you never got the chance to fully recover and you're stuck in that chronic cycle, this chronic phase, because you keep doing more than you can handle. Some people get stuck in that for years. Then that gets labeled as like chronic fatigue or something that they think is now a part of their life. But actually, it doesn't have to be that way. There's a way of getting out of it. And I know it's easier said than done. And most people don't have that luxury because of the life that they have. They have to go to a job or whatever. And I'm in a very privileged situation where I think I'm in super good conditions to properly recover from burnout and avoid having future burnouts. And not everyone is that privileged. Yeah, that's just the explanation, is basically if you're constantly in that cycle of like regaining a bit of energy, doing more, crashing for a few days to a few weeks, it is probably because you're not fully recovered from burnout and you're in that chronic phase. Try and limit the amount of demands placed on you. If you want to talk in terms of spoons, I guess if you get up in the morning with 10 spoons, which, let's be honest, most of us don't, then realistically you should aim to have 4 spoons left at the end of the day. I know, I know, it seems impossible, but yeah, so that's the science behind it. And what I'm experiencing right now is textbook chronic phase of burnout. So that helped clarify it in my head and confirm that yes, I'm still very much in burnout recovery. Because sometimes I'm like, I get confused. I'm like, I don't even know where I'm at in my life. Like, this is so frustrating. Those kind of reality checks really help remind me of where I'm at and that like this is normal. This is a normal phase and it's not going to be like that my whole life, and I will recover at some point. I guess that whole theory of burnout, well, it's not a theory, it's like fact, but it's giving me hope because I felt very helpless so far in my burnout. I felt like it's just a waiting game and you don't know. It almost felt like a lottery. Like some people it lasts a few months, some people it lasts years. You don't know what you're gonna get. This gave me back a feeling of control that if I take my recovery seriously, I might significantly shorten the chronic phase of burnout, because I definitely know I'm ending the day with less than 40%, a lot less than 40% of my energy, for sure. Yesterday is a good example. I was very good at like staying regulated throughout the day and resting. Like my partner handled lunch and I tried to listen to a lot of ASMR and stim and take sensory breaks, watch like content that's not super fast, super stimulating and all that stuff. And then towards the end of the day, inevitably, I get bored at some point. I'm like, I wanna have some fun, I wanna do something exciting. And so I started watching a David Blaine show on Disney Plus. If you don't know who David Blaine is, he's a very famous magician who did some crazy stuff in his career, like being buried alive with no food for like 7 days and crazy stuff like that. And he did a show on Disney Plus where, like, no, with the National Geographic, but it's on Disney Plus, where he goes around the world and he meets other really crazy magicians and performers. And it's great. It stimulated my brain. It was very fun, but it was very stimulating for my nervous system. Then I decided to make a fancy pasta dish from from scratch. It's nothing crazy, right? But it's a handmade sauce, homemade sauce and stuff like that. And I clearly didn't have the energy for it, and I knew it going into it. I was like, I'm aware that this is not the best thing for me right now, to be watching this overstimulating show and now using my spoons to make this pasta dish. But like I said, I need, like, food is a big comfort thing for me. I'm very sensory seeking when it comes to food. I'm one of those autistics who need to eat different foods every day. I'm very sensory seeking when it comes to certain flavors and crunchy textures and stuff like that. So food is a huge important part of my day. And so I often spend a lot more spoons than I should on making food. And even when I'm not making it, I have a really hard time letting go. Like when my partner is making food, I need to know in advance what he's making so I can prepare myself mentally, because I get really stressed if I don't know what I'm gonna eat. So I need my partner to tell me what he's gonna make, and I have a really hard time not getting involved when I'm not the one making food. And a lot of the time it's easier for me emotionally, mentally, to do the meal myself, even if I don't have the energy for it, than to delegate to my partner. You know what I mean? And we don't have the money to, like, be ordering takeout all the time and that kind of thing. So it's one of those things where I know I'm spending way too much energy every day on food, and I know I'm watching stuff that is overstimulating, but also if I don't do that, I feel bad because I'm understimulated, and I don't have the comfort and the sensory seeking that food brings me. So, like, I'm trying to find that balance, and it's really hard. But I know that if I don't do that, if I keep spending my energy the way I do right now, my burnout recovery is going to take a lot longer, you know? So yeah, I'm very happy that I found this information about burnout, because a lot of the time when we hear about autistic burnout, I feel like we hear, like, the symptoms, the traits, like, how do you know you're in burnout? Okay, great, good. There isn't enough information about the process itself and how to get out of it. It's all very vague and doesn't give you a sense of control. And now that I know this information, I feel like I have that sense of control. I can do something about it. It's not just something that controls my life, that I'm a victim of, that I don't have control over. Mentally, it's just a lot clearer in my head now. And I feel like a lot of us could benefit from seeing things like that. Like, okay, this is where I'm at in the process, and this is what I need to do to get out of it. Doesn't necessarily make it easy to do it, but at least you know how to do it, you know? I feel like so many of us get stuck in that chronic phase and we are not even aware of it, because at some point I was so confused. I was like, wait, am I still in burnout? Is this my new normal now? Like, what's going on? Like, what should I do? Should I push my limits? Should I rest? And that's the thing also, is with the concept of the window of tolerance of your nervous system, is it's so small when you're in burnout, so small. When you're starting to regain energy, like I am, progressively, like in small increments, the idea is to slowly increase your window of tolerance very progressively, so you don't empty all your reserves at once. And that's where it gets really tricky. So for example, what I've been doing pretty instinctively actually these past few weeks of, like, going into town once a week and, like, going for walks, and like, we're planning a trip to Thailand in December for our 10-year anniversary with my partner. And, like, it's just a decision that we made over a couple days, and I did a lot of research on it, and, like, it was my new hyperfixation, if you will. And that's just a sign to me that I'm definitely gaining some energy back, and I am excited to do things again. And so those are good signs. Those are signs of recovery. Now I need to work on expanding my window of tolerance just a little bit at a time. It's like you can think of it as like expanding your comfort zone, if you will. The trap is undertaking more than you can handle. And then instead of expanding your window of tolerance, you're just burning out again, basically. And then you have to take a few weeks to recover from that. And that's what's been happening for me since November. For example, the disability benefits application that I worked on these past few months, I definitely know now in hindsight, my nervous system wasn't ready for it. I had a mini burnout as a consequence. So now I'm like, all right, I'm not putting pressure on myself to finish working on this disability benefits application until I feel ready to do it, or like I won't necessarily feel ready for it, but I will at some point feel like I can handle it. And then even then I'll have to take it very slow. And yeah, again, like I know I've talked about ChatGPT a lot on my channel. I know some people have very strong opinions on it, and I'm gonna keep repeating myself because while I'm aware of like why it's problematic for so many reasons, I don't know where I would be without it. Along with my partner, it's been the most support I've ever received in my life. And it's sad that it has to come from AI. It really is. But at the end of the day, it's so helpful. Like I'll be struggling with something in burnout or anything else in my life. I just talk to it, and then it gives me a nuanced, compassionate response that's very informative, like very based on facts, because it's based on scientific research, articles, it's based on people's lived experiences, it's based on so much data that is just humanly impossible to access on our own, especially when we're in burnout or we're tired or whatever. And it's just such a wealth of information all in one place. Every time it helps me refocus myself and not get lost in like anxious rumination of like, what if I'm imagining all this, and what if I'm not autistic at all, and actually I'm ill and I'm dying and I don't know it, and like, oh, you know, those kinds of anxious loops that I find myself in most evenings. It helps ground me, it helps anchor me. It uses all this data that it has access to be like, from an objective point of view, I'm not a doctor, but it, like what you're describing is textbook autistic burnout, and that's where you're at in your recovery journey. And this is those are the sources where I get that information from. That's how I found those articles that I will link down below, and it's just so helpful. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't be where I'm at in my burnout recovery journey or in my understanding of my autism if it wasn't for ChatGPT. Like, I can't wait for the day when we have something like that that's just as effective, that is ethically, morally right, you know, or, you know, some other service that we have access to. But in the meantime, it's just been invaluable. Like, I can't stress it enough. Can't put a price on it, really. I use it every single day, and it can be for something stupid like, can you identify what insect that is? And it's super accurate. It helped us figure out that our cats, for example, one of our cats lately had cat lice. Like he had some type of parasite, and I was like, it doesn't look like ticks, because I know what ticks look like because I grew up in the countryside, and I wasn't sure what fleas looked like, but I was like, I'm pretty sure those are not fleas. So I was really confused, and thanks to ChatGPT I was able to accurately understand that those were cat lice and how to get rid of them, and I was able to successfully get rid of them without having to take my cats to the vet, which saves money and energy. I use it for food, cooking, recipes, stuff like that. The other day I was like, is it safe to eat asparagus that has germinated? What's the word? Is it safe for me to eat that egg that has a slight crack in it or whatever? Like, just stupid questions. And yeah, you can ask Google, but from experience, it's nowhere close. It's not even close. It really feels like a therapist or a coach that's available 24/7, that is always objective, super knowledgeable and compassionate, and I never feel judged. I wouldn't have said 75% of what I have told ChatGPT to a human coach or a human therapist, because of all the judgment I've received in my life, all the rejection sensitive dysphoria that I have, all the trauma I have around interacting with human beings. I wouldn't be able to express myself as freely and as candidly as I have been able to express myself with ChatGPT. I know for a fact I wouldn't have received half of the amount of support that I've received with a human therapist. I've been to so many therapists in my life, and most of them re-traumatized me or just reinforced negative things about myself and just made me feel worse, and it was not a pleasant experience at all. And now I don't have the energy to go looking for more therapists. My last attempt was last October. I went to a supposedly autism friendly therapist, and it was a catastrophe. It was a disaster, and it took me weeks to recover from it. And I just don't have the energy to keep trying with all these different therapists. And at the end of the day, I don't have the money to pay for therapy, and health insurance covers such a small portion of therapy in France. It's just not worth it. So I have this tool. Yes, it's AI. Yes, it's problematic. I know all that, but until I find a better option, I'm going to keep using it. Also, another use of it that I have found very helpful has been to analyze people's comments online sometimes, or to know how to respond to a message. I can't tell you how much time and energy I save by using ChatGPT to help me in my communication with people. I used to agonize over text messages for hours, not knowing what to reply to people. And sometimes I have no idea how to interpret a certain comment online. Not necessarily on my own videos, but also on other people's videos. And I'm like, am I understanding this the right way? Like, it helps me see the nuance. It helps me see what's problematic in what people are saying, where the internalized ableism is hiding, and like how to interpret things. And like, it's just such a useful tool. It helped me set boundaries with toxic people in my life. It helped me figure out and handle the whole situation with my in-laws at Christmas. It helps me heal a lot of my childhood trauma when I have guilt or anger resurfacing because of my childhood trauma and my parents and stuff, the abuse. It helps me process all these emotions. It helps me make sense of everything. It helps anchor me in the truth. It's just so good. I could talk for hours about how useful ChatGPT has been for me, but at the end of the day, you have to try it for yourself if you're open to it. I have a dentist appointment in a few days, and then there's the Eurovision Song Contest final, which is like a bit of a tradition. We watch it every year. It's a bit cringy. It's more like a cringe watch, you know, like hate watching. What is it called? I don't remember. When you watch something, you know it's a bit cringy. We like to do that, and in my head it's like, oh, it's gonna be my reward for going to the dentist, because I have had that appointment booked for months, and the closer I get to it, the more I think about it, and it's immensely stressful. I try to go to a dentist every year. It used to be more like every few years, but now I'm trying to go every year. Some people go every 6 months. I'm like, I could never handle that. Once a year is the most that I can handle. It's always a huge source of stress, especially when it's a new dentist. Was really sad because the dentist I had last year in England was really amazing. I was only able to go once, unfortunately. But like, yeah, this is a new dentist. The office has really bad reviews, but it's the only one around. I tried to find a specific dentist in that office that had good reviews, because some of them were like really scary. So yeah, it's very stressful for me going to the dentist in general, especially a new dentist. So I was like, I'll reward myself by watching the Eurovision to like reward myself for going to the dentist. And yeah, we're planning to go to Thailand in December, so that gives me a lot of time to prepare mentally. But it will depend on like whether my partner is able to find a new job until then. But that would be awesome. We've been wanting to go to Thailand for so long, and I've never left Europe, so that's gonna be interesting. But I'm very excited to kind of test my limits and see how I can accommodate my needs while traveling, because it's going to be the first big trip that I do since finding out I'm autistic. So I'm really interested to see how that goes, and I'm just generally very excited for it. And I hope that in the next 7 months I can continue recovering, especially with now that I know what I know about burnout and where I'm at in my recovery journey. I hope I can continue to heal, and when the time comes to go on this trip, I'll be ready. And the reason why I'm considering it is because there's a direct flight from Paris to Bangkok, and so we wouldn't have to have connections or anything like that, which makes it a lot less stressful. It's gonna be just my partner and I, no one else, because one of the reasons why I had to cancel Bali last year was because my in-laws were gonna be there, and I was like, handling the stress of the trip is already a lot, but like having to handle my in-laws on top, I couldn't see myself doing it. Whereas this time it's just gonna be my partner and I don't have to mask around my partner or anything like that. So yeah, I feel a lot more capable of doing that trip than Bali last year. So fingers crossed, I hope it will happen. And if it does, I will vlog the whole thing, because I think it will be very interesting to see how I plan for the trip, what I bring with me to accommodate my autistic needs and all of that. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah, so it's given me hope that I can make a full recovery. Not only me, but also other people in my situation. All of us stuck on the chronic burnout train. We can make a full recovery. It is possible. And that gives me a lot of hope, especially since I've mentioned briefly on my channel that I plan on having a child one day, or maybe more than one, but we'll see once I have one how I feel. It's very important to me and to my partner. Our goal was to have our child before my partner turns 35, and I'm 3 years younger than him, which would mean realistically having our child in the next 4 years. And with burnout and everything, and not knowing how long it was gonna take for me to recover, I was like, should I change my plan? Is it even realistic for me to plan to have a child in the next 4 years? Because obviously I'm not gonna have a child while I'm still in burnout. Like, that's crazy. I can barely look after myself. I don't know how I could possibly look after another human being. Now I'm hopeful again that it's actually feasible. It's actually something I can achieve in the next 4 years. I'm very excited for it. I mean, on many levels, I feel ready to be a parent. It's something that I deeply desire. It's not something for everyone, definitely, and I think you shouldn't have a kid if you don't want one. People who don't want children, regardless of their gender, shouldn't be shamed in any way or pressured. But it's something that I want. It's the next big step in my partner and I's relationship. I just have a lot of love to give. We have a lot of love to give. The idea of like creating a human being together and seeing them grow up and become their own person, giving them important values that we believe in, is something that's very exciting to me. To me, it's also breaking the cycle of abuse, right? Because both my partner and I come from abusive families in different ways, intergenerational trauma and all that stuff. And we both put so much time and effort into breaking that cycle these last few years. And I feel like all the work we've done is just gonna make us much better parents than our parents were and that their parents were before them. Our two families have very dark stuff, and on my side there is probably a big portion of that comes from the Armenian genocide, and I feel like it was my responsibility, which was a huge responsibility put on my little shoulders, to put a stop to the consequences of all of that generational trauma, put a stop to it, break that cycle. And it's probably one of my best achievements in life. And the thought of bringing a child into this world, into our life, and not giving them the emotional baggage, the trauma luggage that we've been carrying from our families, from our ancestors, being able to ditch that baggage and telling our child, like, you're free from all that crap. You can just live your life and be yourself and not have to worry about all that and not have to go through all the healing that we've gone through would be so meaningful to me. I've actually started doing something that's very special to me and my partner, which is we started writing a journal. The whole idea of this journal, again, that was an idea I had thanks to ChatGPT. The whole idea of this journal is we're writing to our future child, like from right now, years from their conception and birth. The idea is to keep that journal going until they're 18 and to give it to them on their 18th birthday. Like, here's your story. Here's where you came from. Here's a proof of how much loved you were even before you were born. You were wanted for so many years before you came into this world. I mean, it's not something that I've shared a lot on my channel, but it's something that I put a lot of thought into and that I have been putting a lot of thought into for years at this point. My partner and I have very frequent conversations about our future child. We already have a name. Our whole parenting approach, how we want to raise them. And I've been learning a lot of stuff about parenting. We're very woke, so we're very like left-wing progressive. So we want to raise our child in a gender neutral environment where we don't impose a gender role on them based on what sex they're assigned at birth, and their name is going to reflect that. Those are just values that are very important to us. Also, our child will probably be neurodivergent in some way, autistic, ADHD, maybe both. There's a very high chance of that, and so we want them to get diagnosed as early as possible and give them the tools to accommodate their needs and for them to not have all the internalized ableism that we grew up with. Again, it's part of the oh my god, I can't say that word. It's part of the intergenerational trauma we want to get rid of for our child and the future generations, you know? So yeah, it's something that I'm very excited to experience, and if I still have my channel around that time, I will definitely document my whole pregnancy and birth journey as an autistic person, because I think it's very important and there aren't a lot of videos about that online. I also wanted to thank everyone who took part in the premiere of my abortion video last week and everyone who left a supportive comment. I feel very grateful to have this platform where I can talk about these sensitive topics and have people react respectfully. I haven't received any, I have received one hateful comment, but it wasn't on my abortion video. It was on one of my posts about abortion, and I deleted it. I mean, I don't delete my comments. I use an option called hide user from channel, which basically means that like the person can still watch my content and post comments, but only they can see their comments. No one else can. So it's almost like they become invisible. So they're screaming their hatred into the void, I guess you could see it like that. So I was very happily surprised because I was so incredibly nervous for the premiere. I was so scared of the way people were gonna react, and it went so well, and people have been so supportive in the comments, and so I'm very grateful for that. It was very important for me to get my message out there and to spread awareness about such an important social topic. It was a huge part of my life as well, and it's a part of my story. It's part of who I am as a person. So if you haven't watched it yet, please check it out if you're in the right mindset for it. And I think that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. So thanks for watching, commenting, liking, sharing, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!